Reports from the president and the media is the U.S. carried out an operation yesterday in Syria that killed ISIS leader. I'm not going to say his full name because I'll screw it up, but his last name, Baghdadi. What's his full name? Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. I got it? So we took out Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Reports are that he actually killed himself. He had a suicide vest on, and he detonated his suicide vest with some of his children.
And 2 wives.
With some of his children and 2 wives next to him. So father of the year, I would say. So I don't really pretend. There's other people that are way better on foreign policy and counterterror than I am. I don't want to pretend to you that I know every single intricacy. My girlfriend's very good on it. She does it for a living. If you'd like to come on, you're welcome. But I will say this. Kyle Kalinske is very good on this stuff. So is the Gray Zone. But here's what I know. According to my girlfriend and brief research I did, this is more of a symbolic killing. Frankly, if it went badly, the media would be excoriating Trump. So you have to give him some credit. You can't just be deranged and say, no, this doesn't matter. I mean, he's the leader of ISIS. He apparently was not, operational or leading operations as bin Laden was when he was killed. So he was more of a symbolic leader, but a figurehead. But still, killing him is a good thing. But with that, Trump's press conference this morning, you got to give it up to this man. Honestly, the one thing I like about Trump, and there's so few, is Trump just openly and casually, he just tells the truth about these wars. And I know some people watching, including my girlfriend here, is not going to agree with me. But Trump openly, in this press conference this morning, literally explained our whole entire foreign policy in a nutshell, literally explained the entire military-industrial complex, and he did so without shame. So as opposed to the Reagans, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, who pretend we're all over the world to spread democracy and, heal the world and lift people out of poverty and tyranny, Trump just said, it's about the oil. So let's hear from our president about that oil.
We don't want to keep soldiers between Syria and Turkey for the next 200 years. They've been fighting for hundreds of years. We're out. But we are leaving soldiers to secure the oil. Now, we may have to fight for the oil. That's okay. Maybe somebody else wants the oil, in which case they have a hell of a fight. But there's massive amounts of oil, and we're securing it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it stops ISIS, because ISIS got tremendous wealth from that oil. We have taken it. It's secured. Number two, and again, somebody else may claim it, but either we'll negotiate a deal with whoever's claiming it, if we think it's fair, or we will militarily stop them very quickly. Again, there are plenty of other countries that can help them patrol. I don't want to leave 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers on the border. But where Lindsay and I totally agree is the oil. The oil is, so valuable for many reasons. It fueled ISIS, number one. Number two, it helps the Kurds, because it's basically been taken away from the Kurds. They were able to live with that oil. And number three, it can help us, because we should be able to take some also. And what I intend to do, perhaps, is make a deal with an ExxonMobil or one of our great companies to go in there and do it properly. Right now, it's not big. It's big oil underground, but it's not big oil up top. Much of the machinery has been shot and dead. It's been through wars, but and spread out the wealth. But no, we're protecting the oil. We're securing the oil. Now, that doesn't mean we don't make a deal at some point. But I don't want to be, they're fighting for 1,000 years. They're fighting for centuries. I want to bring our soldiers back home, but I do want to secure the oil. If you read about the history of Donald Trump, I was a civilian. I had absolutely nothing to do with going into Iraq, and I was totally against it. But I always used to say, if they're going to go in, nobody cared that much, but it got written about. If they're going to go in, I'm sure you've heard the statement, because I met him when any human being alive. If they're going into Iraq, keep the oil. He would have been paid back.
Hey, give it up for the man. He's pulling back that curtain and just telling you the truth. I think the most truthful thing he said was at the end when he said, why shouldn't we get some of that oil? So let me point out some of the things that he said that are fair and true. That oil was helping ISIS. ISIS was using some of that oil. The Kurds thing, that it's going to help the Kurds, that I don't know about. But Donald Trump, before he ran, at least he's being consistent. His main objection to the Iraq war was not that we're going to a foreign nation under false pretenses, under false reasoning, when there was no concrete intelligence whatsoever that Iraq had anything to do with 9/11, that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, none of this. It was all, fairy dust or the mushroom cloud from Condoleezza. And Colin Powell, obviously we know, got suckered, but he went in front of the United Nations. So Donald Trump was not aghast that we went to a foreign nation and invaded over a lie. And there were real consequences of that. Thousands of U.S. troops murdered, not to mention how many Iraq veterans have killed themselves since, not to mention hundreds of thousands of people in the Middle East that have died as a result of that, not to mention the creation of ISIS in the first place. Donald Trump's not upset over that. He's upset because, well, if we're going to go, why don't you get the oil? Because he thinks like a businessman. And the bottom line is, my girlfriend and others tell me it's more nuanced. Maybe I just look at it as an outsider, as it's not as nuanced as people think. We have invaded many, many countries over the last century for their natural resources, to make sure we have geopolitical dominance in certain regions. That's what John Bolton has wanted to do in Iran. That is what we are. That is why, and we're going to get to this in a minute, Trump has sent troops to Saudi Arabia in the past few months. But it's about the oil. And at least I appreciate, even though Trump is a horrible, horrible leader, even though I'd like to see him lose election, I think he needs to be kicked out of office. At least he's not pretending that our foreign policy is about what it should be, which is protecting America from an imminent threat. That's what defense is supposed to be about. Of course, you need to monitor other countries. You need to look not just at immediate threats, but long-term threats, creations of jihadi groups, creations of dissent. However, sending ground troops, dropping bombs, foments more terrorism. It foments more hate against us. By the way, Trump has doubled down. Google it. Has doubled down on Obama's drone program, which a lot of these generals and a lot of these people think is so great because there's no boots on the ground. But, if your family is getting blown up as collateral damage, which has happened in many of these strikes, it creates more terrorism. But putting this all aside, I just think it's pretty miraculous, and honestly, I appreciate that when he kills the top ISIS leader, who again, more of a figurehead, not operational, at least he's being honest why the United States is really doing this. It is about the oil. He says this, and also let's point out that he's totally full of beep. When Trump says, well, I'm pulling the troops out, we need to stop these forever wars, he might be trying to move troops out of Syria, but he's just sending troops to other places. Corporate media hasn't really reported on this, but this is just in the last 6 months. In May, Trump sent 1,500 troops to the Middle East amid Iran tensions. Trump said the troops would have mostly protective role as part of a buildup that began this month in response to what the U.S. said was a threat from Iran without providing details or evidence. Quote, we're going to be sending a relatively small number of troops, mostly protective, the president told reporters. Okay, mostly protective, they say. Then, in July, U.S. sends another 500 to Saudi Arabia. The United States is sending hundreds of troops to Saudi Arabia in what is intended as the latest show of force towards Iran. Then, more recently, this month, The Trump administration will send nearly 2,000 troops and advanced military equipment to Saudi Arabia to deter threats from Iran. So if I could do the math, you got 1,500 in May, 500 in July, so that's 2,000, and then 4,000 this month, so that would be 1,500, 500, 2,000, another 2,000. 4,000 troops in the last 6 months have been sent to the Middle East over Iran tensions. 4,000 troops, almost the amount we lost in Iraq. So don't believe Trump. Obviously, Trump is going to push this as part of the election, as keeping a promise to his supporters of being an isolationist, getting out of the wars, yada, yada. He might be trying to pull the U.S. out of Syria. He's sending 4,000 other troops for no reason at all. For those who think Iran is a severe, severe threat, that's fine. What I'm saying is there was no evidence that Iran was disobeying or breaking the Iran nuclear deal. One thing that I will give President Obama credit for was that Iran nuclear deal. They were not violating it. Trump, with the help of Bolton, who ironically might actually testify against Trump in front of Congress, Trump let Bolton and these other warmongers heighten and escalate this tension with Iran for no reason. So we got 4,000 troops now between Saudi Arabia and other parts of the Middle East for protective roles. Trump is not an isolationist. He's not anti-war. He's not, taking on the military-industrial complex. This is nonsense. I just showed it to you. What he's doing is what he's always done. He's a master marketer. He's a master salesman. He is a master propagandist. So he's, in fairness, a lot of this is to try and distract from his impeachment stuff. But what he's trying to do is rally up his base and try to talk to those maybe 5 to 10% of Democrats, the 5%, 5 to 10% of Obama's voters that switch to him and say, look, I'm keeping my campaign promises. Look at the Democrats. They're shouting from the rooftops, Russia, bad, we shouldn't be leaving Syria. We shouldn't. Democrats are the war party. I'm getting us all out. Leaving out the fact that he sent 4,000 troops already to the Middle East in 6 months. So I think, to me, the only candidate that actually can contrast to Donald Trump, well, there's two, is Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Elizabeth Warren has voted for every monstrous Trump defense budget. The last two, I believe, she voted for. Pete Buttigieg, what qualifications does this man have to run for president, which we're going to get into? Joe Biden, he is the military-industrial complex. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.